for coming out today. I'm glad the weather is nice. I'm Gina Gerlando. I'm the founder of Yeasty Boys. We're we're a femme-focused beginner surf club located in Rockaway, and basically wherever anyone wants to do it, if anyone wants to start a chapter. So I recently completed a surf therapy facilitator training with Ashley. So we're going to start this panel with some of the stuff that we learned. So I invite you all to just take 3 deep grounding breaths. So if everybody just wants to inhale, take a nice deep inhale, hold your breath at the top, and just kind of set an intention for the panel. What do you want to learn? If you have any questions you want to ask, and exhale. Any fear of public speaking, which I have a lot of. And then take another deep, deep inhale. Let your shoulders kind of rise. Really feel that breath fill you up. And exhale. One more deep, deep, deep breath in. Get all the air in your body. Everything that you need is inside you. And exhale. Cool. So now that we're all grounded, we're really excited to present this panel. We asked our community, what people wanted to see with this year's panel, and I think 99% of people had questions about winter surfing. So we have a bunch of great panelists here from different groups and different experience levels, and we're really excited to introduce them. So start over here with Farmy. You want to introduce yourself?
Hi guys, I'm Farmy. I'm a surf instructor with Laru Beya. I model, I teach surf lessons, and I was raised in Rockaway. I've been surfing for like 6 years.
Hi guys, my name is Autumn. I'm a surf instructor, writer. I've been doing some modeling. Yeah, doing a lot of stuff, but I'm happy to be here to talk about winter surfing.
And we have our co-facilitator, Ashley.
Hi everyone, I'm Ashley. Grew up surfing out here, teach yoga out here, and love the Yeasty Boys, so very stoked to be here, and thanks everyone who came to class this morning.
Hi everyone, I'm Cassandra. I'm actually from Canada. Grew up landlocked, but started surfing here a couple years ago, and I do data analysis for businesses and started doing data analysis for surfing too.
Hi, I'm Alexa Wiley. I've been living in Rockaway for the last 3.5 years. I've been surfing year-round in the winter for 8 years, and I grew up body surfing and boarding on the South Shore of Long Island. I'm really excited to just share all of the little tips, tricks, and hacks I've gained through my time in the water.
Hi everyone, my name is Sin. I'm originally from the Bronx. I was a competitive swimmer, moved to Rockaway about 10 years ago. I've been surfing for about 6 years. I'm the water safety director with Laru Beya, a local nonprofit in Rockaway. Just giving back to the community. I'm also a part of a local water safety coalition, just advocating for water safety education like in schools, K through 12.
All right, so the first topic we have is mindset. I think we all probably have heard you have to be out of your mind to surf in the winter in New York. But there's definitely different ways to kind of get in the right headspace before you even go out. So what we just did, those grounding breaths are really important. I like doing that when I get to the beach, just really like smell the salt air, take a minute to kind of look at the conditions, see who's where, what the waves are doing. And another interesting thing is that salt water actually has the same amount of salinity as amniotic fluid. So, if you feel at home in the ocean, it's because it's the same amount of salt in the womb. So I always like to remember that when I'm freezing. I'm like, wait a minute, this is home. I'm safe. I'm okay. So there's a quote from the book, The Body Keeps the Score. The most important job of the brain is to ensure survival, even in the most miserable conditions. Everything else is secondary. So, as all of us know by now, sometimes surfing in the winter might seem a little miserable, might be a little stressful, but how does the ocean or surfing help us continue learning even when it is like a stressful situation or it's freezing and snowing and you're trapped in your wetsuit and hood and gloves and boots? So an interesting fact is that every wave kind of provokes a healthy stress hormone release, and that kind of pulls you into the present moment. And I think when you're surfing in very cold water, it's important to stay present. You definitely don't want to let your mind wander. You want to keep an eye on the waves, make sure that you're really aware of your surroundings, and just being present, being like, damn, I'm a badass. I'm in this freezing water. Like, look at me go. So part of surfing is also wiping out, which is a little bit scarier when the water is very, very cold, as we all know, but that's part of surfing, and every wipeout is also kind of an invitation to just shake off any excess stress, wipe out, take a minute, pop up, make sure you're okay, your board's okay, and just take a deep breath. And try and remember that you will be warm eventually. So there's a couple of different things you can do either before you get in the water, when you're starting to surf, when it's cold out. One of my favorites is literally just shaking out your body. That actually engages the social engagement system, so that releases extra sympathetic nervous system chemicals or hormones. So that's what fight or flight comes from. And you can be in a stressful situation surfing when the water is cold, but getting ready to have that sympathetic nervous system mobilize us is really important, and it actually also is a way for your body to keep itself warm. So being able to kind of like shake out any excess stress, movement is really important, staying warm, even if you're just sitting on your board. It's very important to keep moving. I had a surf coach once tell me, like, you should always be paddling, and I was like, fuck that, I'm lazy, I don't want to do that. But it does work in the winter. I definitely paddle a lot more. So some questions for the panel. What are some mindfulness techniques that you guys practice either before getting in the water or just to kind of psych yourself up and get in the right headspace to surf? I'll start down here.
Well, one thing that I like to do in the wintertime when I'm putting on a wetsuit, whether it's like dry, wet, anything, because the 5'4" is so thick, I use a plastic bag. So it's like put the plastic bag over your foot and your feet and your arms will slip in so much easier, just to start it off a little easier for yourself. When I'm going out, like, honestly, I'm not going to lie, in the winter, I don't go out that much. So I like to go out with friends. It's like an accountability partner. You have that person that's like, let's go surf. And that day you're like, I don't like you right now. And then sometimes it's the other way around. And so that helps a lot also. Or like really planning it out and setting the intention and the time for knowing that you're going to go surf and just get it over with. Because the reward is getting out the water and feeling better and like thinking back about your session, all the waves that you got, the waves that you missed, the wipeouts. So, yeah.
I like to say that winter surfing is torture and it's training season. But there's so many benefits to cold water exposure, so that before I get in, I'm like, I list all of the reasons why it's such a good idea to go out. Like, I know I'm going to feel more present. I know that I'm training. I know that after I get out, I'm going to feel so empowered. So that's just what's going through my mind. Should I wait? Can you hear me? Okay. And then something I like to do, again, the wetsuit is super thick, so I'm like doing deep stretches, deep squats, hip openers before I get out there. Yeah, and I commit. Like, the same thing while you're surfing, you have to commit to the wave. The moment you have hesitation, maybe something will go wrong. But if you commit to the wave, if you commit to winter surfing, it feels a bit more, you feel more at ease in the water because you've already decided that this is something I'm going to do. Yeah.
Cassandra, do you have any thoughts on mindfulness or cold water benefits?
Yes, okay. Actually, so one trick that I really have just for mindset is focus on your exhale. So when you're exhaling, your heart rate is slowing down and your body is starting to calm down. You're telling your body it's okay. So this is even when I'm like out there and it's a day that's a little big for me, and then I see a set coming, like, and then I'm starting to panic huddle. It's like, just focus on that exhale. So you're breathing in normally, and then, or when you come up from getting held under, like, focus on exhaling the CO2 out of your body and letting your heart rate slow down. That goes a long way for me with mindset. But, cold water in general is actually really, really good for you. There's the leading researcher on this is Susanne Sonnenberg. I think she's in Denmark. She's somewhere Nordic. And she's done a lot of really cool research on winter swimmers. And there's so many great health benefits. You get all of these great hormones. You get serotonin and dopamine, which are making you like feel good, sometimes euphoric, motivated. It's really good for your immune system. Helps you grow brown fat, which is really good for regulating temperature and keeping you healthy. So it's pretty cool. It's actually really good for you. One neat thing about Susanna is she'll say she thought this was a good research topic. She was a winter swimmer. She didn't go out in cold water. thought it seemed horrible and like didn't appeal to her at all. And then finally the people she was doing research on convinced her like, you have to try it. And she was one of those people that initially hated it and now she loves it. So she always says like, you really can have the right mindset and go out there and just like teach your body to get used to this, and then your body will adapt and your body won't be as cold and your body will actually like let you go out and enjoy those conditions.
Alexa, what's the coldest water you've ever surfed in?
Oh, that's a tricky one. Last November, I was in Rhode Island, so latitude's a little higher, and that was probably in the low 40s, but that's not the coldest. I think the coldest was probably February 2022. There was a nor'easter and it was snowing out and it was very windy and my face muscles started to kind of get a little too cold, you know? You can't emote as much and that's when I knew. I was like, this is the coldest for sure.
Was that before or after Mexico?
Before. That was a year before Mexico. Shoot, then I was 21.
I remember that though, it was freezing.
It was
I think the water temperature was 30, I want to say, during that nor'easter. That's definitely the coldest water I've ever surfed in.
The waves were great.
Yeah,
It was totally worth it.
it was. Same with the coldest water you've ever surfed in.
Honestly, it's Rockaway. Because I'm one of those people, I haven't traveled that much to, go surf. So for me, Rockaway is like my main place to do it. And surfing year round, you just don't stop. So once you hit that coldest point, everything after is just like, it is what it is from that point. But yeah, as they said, like going out with friends, I think more than anything, even like getting your mindset together, that motivation with the friend, like, come on, let's do it. As you're putting on the wetsuit, you're giving each other a look like, are we really doing this? And it's like, we're really doing this. So yeah, just having your friends. The breathing is super important. The stretching that Autumn mentioned is super important because the thicker the suits get, we can all relate. Like paddling is like, you feel like you did a whole workout and you just started, you know what I mean? So yeah. That's my advice.
What are some safety precautions as our safety coordinator that people can take for cold water?
Right up my alley. So as far as safety in general, not particular to the season, just knowing before you go. Coming to Rockaway, I noticed that a lot of surfers don't know how to swim. And that was funny to me because I was just like, you guys are out there. I'm a swimmer coming into surfing, so I'm qualified, a lot lifeguarded, and I couldn't understand just relying on your board as a life-saving tool. You can, but you have to know how to do even that. So just having some basic line, whether it's knowing how to float, knowing how to tread water, knowing how to actually duck dive under waves just with your body. Forget about a board. I think those things are important. And then if you're already a surfer but no swim knowledge, taking that time out. What I explain to a lot of people when it comes to their surf journey is that a lot of it, like we go out surfing, before we're even in the water, we're actually doing pop-ups on the sand. You can be surfing for 10 years. We're stretching on the sand. We're taking that moment to kind of breathe, get into that moment, and get ready for what we're prepared to do. And also when you're in the water, knowing who's around you. Knowing how the water feels. So that takes just your body. Sometimes we're out there like giving lessons and I can feel the water change. I'll just look at the other instructors and we're like, yep, there's a rip forming. So you have to almost be one with the water because just like any situation, it can go 0 to 1,000 very quickly. You can find yourself in a position where you're just getting tossed. We all, I'm sure you guys also have had situations where you're like, all right, I think I'm gonna die today. It's like it's done. But just knowing how to utilize your board as a life-saving tool, knowing how to pull your leash to get your body to pop up, gripping your board. It's like a rocket, it'll shoot you right out of the water. So taking that time out to educate yourself and know when to fold them too. There's so many people that are out there. Even when we started, we were those people because we didn't really have anyone right away giving us that etiquette. We had to learn while we were doing it. We would just go. And it's not great to do that because you don't know. You might not swim, you might be able to swim, but the conditions can change in a heartbeat. So when you're out, just so they see that you're there, so God forbid you are in a position. I can give a perfect example of the last Halloween weekend. Laru Beya had an event, and where people were competing, but one of the people on the sand, they noticed 2 people were out getting pushed. They're just drifting. And they're like, who's gonna go out there wearing costumes and wetsuits? And I'm like, shoot, I'm the MC, so I just ran with the bullhorn. And I'm like, hey guys, paddle, yeah. Just keep paddling. So I had to coach them to go from one jetty all the way to the other side and paddle in. And we watched them until they got in. So the fact that we do have the community where we can just look out for each other, that's essential too. I can go on for hours.
I think you bring up a good point about knowing when to fold them. Ashley and I were talking about this yesterday. Do you want to comment on that?
Sure. I think my biggest tip is have compassion for yourself and be real with yourself. You're not going to surf in June the way you surf in January. It's a completely different situation. You're against the elements. Your wetsuit can add up to 10 pounds. So we have some board sizing guides and stuff inside, but you should be voluming up, you should be sizing up, and you should know that like you're going to be more tired, you're going to have more trouble breathing, you might get more defeated, but that's okay. It's part of what you're doing. You're challenging yourself. So I think, if it's too big, stay on the shore, go get a coffee, watch other people surf. If you're tired and your wetsuit's feeling like too much that day, do a half hour, don't do a full hour. Like there's a lot of being more forgiving with yourself that comes with winter surfing, and so I think that's sort of my tip.
No shame in sitting on the shore.
No. Or catching one wave. I did that this morning. I got one good wave. I was like, all right, cool, I'm done. I'm out.
It was a good way.
I'm chilly.
Just real quick. So we're talking about rips and like how easy.
Yeah, that's the next topic is smells and forecasting.
Okay.
So
no, I was just gonna say like one thing to always do, which I actually don't see everyone doing, is always sightline. Like when you paddle out, turn to the shore and look at like what's my marker on the shore, and then every so often just check back, because sometimes it's the chillest day and you're not really paying attention, and then you check back and you're like, is that like thing that I was using, like where am I? So just every so often looking back, am I where I thought I am? Because sometimes you don't feel those rips and you don't realize that you're getting sucked like way out, like oh where's the jetty, or like way down the beach, and that's something we do every time we go out.
Yeah, and I think that's something like we all know in the winter the waves are bigger, which is great if you're trying to challenge yourself. You can do it a little bit safer. It's not as crowded as it is in the summer, but I guess for beginner surfers, what's like the best way to kind of predict when a swell is coming, like, or even like you said, being in the water and being aware of any changes? I don't know if any of you have any tips for either out of the water beforehand, surf forecasting, or when you're in the water, just things to kind of keep in mind.
Talk to people.
Oh my god.
That's like what's helped me the most. Like I'll see random people in the water and I'm just like, oh, I like how you surf. Tell me about it. Or like explain this to me. Or if I know somebody's knowledgeable in that, then like I'll reach out on Instagram and ask about the swell, or be like, what does it mean if it goes around Barbados instead of Bermuda, or this and that. And it's like super helpful, because that's what surfing really is. We're always learning from our environment, from the people around us, from pro surfers that inspire us and things like that. So it's like you can't just depend on yourself and your personal experiences to learn what you need in the water. So like being open and reaching out to people, asking questions, and like really using the community around you, because we have an amazing community in Rockaway. So it's like you can talk to anybody on this panel, anybody that's here in this room right now, people that own businesses, Station, Breakwater, and all these people will support you. And then also, download Surfline. It's not the best, it lies, but at the end of the day, it's like that's the best thing we got. Oh, learn to read the buoys. That's the best thing. It's the most accurate reading. It's in real time, so you don't get any like advanced knowledge. But like if you're about to go right now, it'll tell you how big the wave is, the wind direction, the wind strength. It'll tell you everything you need to know that you could get from Surfline, but it's just like real time. So there's no mistakes with that.
I don't know. I was going to say I'd start every lesson this way. Like, you're a beginner, maybe you've never surfed. The first thing you're going to do is height, tide, what's the wind doing, and then like where are my exits, where are the rips likely to be, and then who's in the water. If someone's coming out, kind of like Farmi said, honestly, a beginner, I might not know what's actually going on with the swell, but I can be like, how was your experience? Like, what was it like out there? I'm a beginner, where do you think I should go? And then in the beginning, I tell people, take a picture of the conditions and write 2 lines of your experience so that you're building your own personal knowledge, you're building your journey so that you really develop an awareness with the water.
I just wanted to add, like any community you're going to for sport, especially with surfing, how Farmi said about community, you should call the local surf shop and just say, hey, because I know at Station, we're all trained to do that. When people walk in, for example, and they're like big swell days, we say, no, today's not a day for you, but what you can do is take this as a learning day. Go out there, watch, and ask questions, like what they're saying. Speak to the other surfers. Look at the boards they're riding. And before you're even in the water, it's a lot of on-land work. You have to understand, like she said, what the conditions are, who's out there, how crowded it is. In the winter, there are also no lifeguards. That's something that's super important. So God forbid you get hurt, where are you gonna go? So just having all of those things in mind, and take a lesson. Contacting your community to find out from people, maybe you can take them out with you, something like that. But lessons don't hurt. Don't be afraid to just, get coached.
I think that brings us up to a good point. When you're surfing in the winter, what's in your surf bag? I know Cassandra always has a first aid kit, so what are some things that are maybe you have that you wouldn't have in the summer, just things that you always have in your surf bag?
Oh, definitely a nice tea. Maybe it's chai tea or ginger lemon or something like that. I bring mittens, dry mittens, because after a while my hands start to get crunchy and that's when I know I need to get out of the water. But then there's going to be this period of when you're not in the water anymore, you don't have gloves on, and you're in 30-degree temperatures. So you want something to put your hands in. My mittens they're not nice. They're salty, they're crusty, but they're my post-surf mittens. Then I also have wool socks in my bag. Very important. A towel. I have a airtight mug that has water in it as well. So I know a lot of people probably commute from far away to get to Rockaway. What you can do is bottle up some warm water, and then when you get out of the water, you put this on your hands. It's going to be nice. Put it on your feet. It's going to be nice. And a towel. Did I say towel already? Yeah. I think that's it. Oh, also, always sunscreen. I don't have a surf poncho.
It doesn't matter if it's the winter, you will get burned. Sunscreen every day.
It's very reflective out there. So.
And then in terms of like first aid kit, like you were saying, because there's not lifeguards, like is there any first aid kit specific things that you think you should have in your bags?
Yeah. As far as first aid, they know I always carry various sizes of first aid kits. I have the small one, the travel pack. I have the medium one. But Band-Aids, the little tape, just in case you have to close a wound. Vasitration, some kind of Vaseline. And maybe like a cleaner, like an iodine. They have the little packets just to clean out a wound. And like you said, water is essential if you get a cut. You can just clean it out. And maybe a cloth. Not necessarily gauze if you don't have that, but just like a t-shirt or something if you have to wrap, yeah. Yeah. And I always carry an asthma pump. I also have asthma, so I always have an asthma pump somewhere.
I'd say one other thing that's helped me that I never really thought of is like liquid skin. That's what they call it. So it's like, it's especially good when you're traveling if you're gonna like reef breaks or anything, so you can like seal your wounds and continue surfing. Yes, that's what you want to do.
How bad?
But that, if you don't have it, like crazy glue, fun fact, that was the original use for it, to close wounds and things. So like, you don't have any liquid skin, use some crazy glue just to like seal it. So it's not getting infected, it's not getting dirty. Like that.
Yeah, there's this really great spray called Active Repair, and it doesn't sting, but it's really good for preventing infection. So I always have that. We sprayed Aiden's foot with that when he got the sea urchins. And you can also get these like little zipper closure bandages that can help like close a bigger wound.
Yeah.
Quick clot, which can help if there's like a lot of bleeding. And then I always have a tourniquet because like God forbid someone got finned in the wrong space. Like you have minutes to deal with something like that, and they're small and they're cheap. So it's good to always have something like that as well.
A surf leash can be our tourniquet.
Yeah,
Right, exactly.
But the thing with tourniquets is you have to keep tightening them sometimes, and you cannot, you can't ever untighten it. A surgeon has to do it. It's like very dangerous. So it's ideal if it's like more controlled and you can write down the time and everything. But yeah, in a pinch.
Especially for safety. I was just gonna add on safety. I think having a plan and telling someone, and I sound like my mom, so I can't believe I'm saying this, but if you're gonna go out surfing by yourself, one, that's a risk that you're taking, and make sure that you're comfortable with the risk that you're taking. Because two, you don't have to do that. We have the Yeasty Boys chat, like there's a million people surfing with you. And at the very least, you should let someone know where you're going, what time you're going, and when you plan to be back. Because that's gonna be the best way for you to, even if you're going with friends, for people to just know where you are, where they can expect you. And so just on safety, that is important to mention.
So I guess that brings us to our next topic. Living in Rockaway, I'm sure we all know half of the town disappears to Puerto Rico in the winter. Sometimes it's just too cold to surf here. So for the panel, do you have any surf trip tips about how to travel sustainably, how to really support the local communities when you are traveling, and kind of how you pick locations, whether it's based on how warm it is or different types of breaks?
Okay, I'm not gonna lie. I'm not really sure how I've been traveling so much these last few years. But the things that I do know help me, it's like what a lot of Rockaway does. It's just mostly working in the summer, saving as much money as you can so that you can put that time away in the winter to go, and you don't have to worry about like finance or anything like that. Or traveling to places where you know you could still work or volunteer or assist or do something like that. Really doing your research, and once again, tapping into your community, asking people for recommendations. I went to Panama, which is like not that far, honestly, but it's very similar prices to Bali, which I didn't even know. Cheap food, cheap travel, everything is super close in the community, and world-class surf. Like, Rockaway could never, I'm not lying. And so it's like things like that, or like meeting people and traveling with them in a group makes things cheaper. You can split a car, split a place, get a villa together, and that also like takes down the price and things like that. Or just like sometimes you just gotta quit your job. I'm serious. Like, I did it.
Traveling centered around surf has been like my main priority for the past 3 years. I've been able to now center work around that because it has just made me a better person. But like, you have to think about what you're doing, right? Like, even as like I'm writing about these places, and you want to make sure that you're supporting the local economies that you're going to, the local people you're going to. You don't want to be like, you don't want to be that person. So it's like, before I go, I'm looking up all of the businesses there. Who can I support? Is this a local owned business? Like, is it someone from America who just came in and they're like, hey, what's up? Or do these people support local orgs there? Things like that. I look and see how I can volunteer. I traveled recently to Costa Rica. My first surf trip was to Nicaragua. It was with a surf retreat, but they have their own nonprofit where they're building schools, they're supporting the people who live there. So things like that. And then I'm making sure that I can bring anything that I have extra of. So any first aid kits, things for the local schools, if I can fit it in my backpack or my suitcase, then that's what I'm doing. If you all know Kwame, but he's like, Autumn, come to Antarctica with me. I'm like, why would I do that? I want to be warm. I know, and I see the appeal, but I'm like, I'm leaving the winter for a reason. But like, find out what's your priority. For me, it's warm weather and longboard waves, open faces. Like, that's my priority. So I'm looking for that. But one other thing is an itinerary. Me and Farmy recently traveled together, and we're very different travelers. I'm the kind of traveler where I'm like, I know exactly where I want to go, and I've allocated time for the adventure, but I know where I'm staying throughout the entire trip. And Farm was like, we can figure that out in like a week back, And we had a place where there was one time where we were figuring out where we wanted to stay, and it was 2 days before we had to leave, and we ended up being forced to book the worst experience in our lives, like moldy conditions, which just wasn't great. So, but that was fun. So just figure out but it's a great story. So figure out what the priority is. Like, am I going on this crazy adventure, or do I want stability where I'm going? Just, figure out what you want.
Travel with the right people, definitely. So Cassandra and Alexa and I recently went to Mexico, Saladita, and that was really cool. We brought in a bunch of different friend groups, but it was a really nice experience because everybody was very chill. But in terms of, like you were saying, like asking the community what they need, so there's a great website called Pack for a Purpose, where you can look it up and just put in where you're going, and it'll tell you local orgs and local schools and requested items. Like sometimes it's just like a thing of colored pencils, like something you can very easily throw into your carry-on. Or I know a lot of places that are a little bit farther off, like they just need surf wax. Like it's hard, to order that on Amazon there or whatever. They don't have local surf shops that they can support. So in my experience when I travel, I always like to either reach out to the place that I'm staying and be like, is there anything specific that we can bring? Which when Ashley and I went to Jamaica, they gave a list and said, like, these are the things we need. So people might not have that written out, but it's always worth like shooting the hotel a DM or shooting the retreat a DM and being like, what do you need that's easy for me to bring, that's easy for me to get in a metropolitan area that you might not be able to get? And it's, it's nothing for us to throw it in our bag, but it makes a really big difference for people that can't get it. And it's something that's super easy to do and just helps support the local community. So I think in terms of that too, in terms of the winter surfing community, do you guys find it's a different type of surfer, or are they crazy? I don't know. Alexa, if you have any thoughts.
Aren't we all a little crazy? I do think that there's a different energy when it's cold in the water and in the air. I think that people are a little bit more goofy. I think they're a little bit more outgoing. I think they're more intentional about why they're out there. I think in the summertime, the water's really crowded. A lot of people are just trying to go straight. I think people in the wintertime, they're out there for a reason. They want to figure out how to surf. They want to go down the line. They want to turn on a wave, like they're there for a reason. You're not going to put on all the gear and freeze your butt off just because you want to get an Instagram pic. Well, you might, but, they're there for a reason.
Right. Anybody else? Is there like different types of winter surfers as opposed to summer surfers?
Winter surfers are different. They are, you are a little crazy, but I think you're more intentional in all areas of your life. You're not going to torture yourself for what, You're really out there for the craft, for yourself, and I think maybe they're a bit more connected to the sport and to the earth. At least that's me.
I feel like it's pretty quiet in the winter. You can't hear anybody because everybody's wearing a hood. Nobody wants to talk because everybody's running home because you're frozen and you're trying to unlock your car. Or the only time, I've heard so many stories where people are I had to ask a stranger to help me get into my house or help me get into my car because I was literally frozen. So it's most of the time it's just if there's no waves, then everybody's kind of just sad and cold. And then if there's waves, everybody's just yeah, it's still cold.
But there's also a bit more camaraderie in the lineup because you're trauma bonding. You're we're all out here, yeah. I've literally cried taking my wetsuit off before because I was in a 6'5" hyperflex. Those things are so stiff, and I was oh my god, I think that's to breathe during all of it. Yeah.
I just want to, in case anyone hasn't winter surfed before, I also just want to give a different narrative.
You're scaring people.
I don't find it traumatic. I do. I think like the intentionality is important, and so you do need to like be thoughtful about it and be putting on the right gear and planning appropriately. But when you do that, I think it can be a really fun and positive experience. And like if I was out there freezing the whole time, I wouldn't do it. Like it's like skiing or snowboarding. Like you can be comfortable, you can be having a lot of fun. It's just you have to be like have the right gear and plan and all of that. But then like the gear's amazing. It keeps you warm. I remember the first time walking into like 40-degree water and a 5'4" wetsuit, being like, this water could kill me, but I feel fine. That's crazy. Like, I don't find it traumatic. But sometimes you overcook it. Like if you are finding yourself starting to shiver in the water, it's time to get out now because you can overdo it really quickly. And so when you start to feel those signals, then you got to get out, and then you got to get out of the wet stuff as quick as possible because it's really like out of the water when it's gonna hit you hard, and you can like get too cold too quickly. So just be prepared, having the dry clothes, like Lex said, having the like warm drink to start warming you up from the inside. But it's like fun.
I would say.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say quickly. You are the lone Canadian on this panel. This is a panel of women who hate winter surfing, but who love women hate winter. But the biggest thing I would say, plan that you are going to need to get out of your wetsuit, and you're going to need energy, and you're going to need time. So if you're like a little tired, and you're like, one more wave, no, go home, because it's going to take you 20 minutes to get out of your wetsuit, and the water is going to be hot, your skin's going to be cold, and it's going to create this awful sensation that is not traumatic. It's so fun. Please leave yourself energy to get your wetsuit off when you get home.
Yeah.
And that kind of brings us to our final topic is gear. Like, how do you get into a winter wetsuit? How do you get out of a winter wetsuit? My poor husband has had to peel me out of 6'5" one too many times while I'm like cursing his life. But do you have any tricks?
Wet socks.
It doesn't work.
There's a product called Wet Socks. It's a 1mm neoprene glove. They're not that expensive. They help you get it on like a plastic bag would, but then you continue to wear it while you surf, so they help you get your suit off as well, slides right off again, and it adds another layer of warmth under your boots and gloves. Like, wet socks are definitely my top tip.
Love wet socks. I do have to say, I am one of those people like, the cold is just so painful for me, but it is fun and you feel so empowered with winter surfing. I like to talk about the reality for me. It's hard, but it's amazing. Like me and Farmy, we've been cold water swimming because you get in the water and you're like, oh my god, I'm alive. Like you feel your whole body, and it is an amazing experience. So I just have to add that. But gear, wet socks, and then I don't recommend the gloves. I recommend the mittens or the claws so that you have some of your fingers together. I think with the gloves at first you're like, yeah, I want to feel everything. I want to have that, accessibility, but you'll get colder faster. And then I'm just going to throw out a brand out there. I really recommend Patagonia or Finister. Their suits are really warm, whereas in sustainable, they use Ulex, which, when you're talking about sustainability, the kit can be really negatively impactful on the earth. And then, I'm not going to throw any brands under the bus.
I will. What I've been doing these last few years, I'm not gonna lie, I layer under my suit. So I'll put leggings on and like a t-shirt I've never done a turtleneck, like a rash guard.
Best.
Yeah, because it's worth it. It really does add, just that little bit of layer will add so much warmth and give you like 30 extra minutes in the water. And you go from an hour-and-a-half session to 2 hours and you caught 2 extra waves. And in the winter, like, it doesn't sound like a lot, but it really is a lot because you already need like more volume because your wetsuit adds 10 pounds and you're struggling to paddle slower because you're literally stuck in this, like, you're like a doll, kind of. That's the best way to describe it. So, like, layering, I love layering. I always take a tea with me. Like, always take a tea with me. Sip it before, sip it during the session, after the session. Helps keep the insides warm so you're not, like, super cold. And a poncho. I like the poncho. Yeah. Throw it on over the suit, and it just like, it's like a windbreaker. Yeah. It's perfect.
We'll cross it. no back zips.
I was just gonna say that, yeah, knowing what type of gear is made for your body. I'm not gonna throw any brands under the bus, but I'm a little curvy, and some wetsuits, it's just not made for that. Like, you literally put it on. If it's tight in certain areas, you want to think about like what you'll actually be doing. Paddling, you want to be able to stretch, you want movement, and then you want the protection. So back zips, chest zips, versus like having a hood connected to your wetsuit or having a separate attachment. I like it connected because I don't like water getting in any part of my swimsuit. I mean my wetsuit. Also, what type of swimsuit you're wearing or gear under your suit, because sometimes you get rubbed in weird places and it's painful after, like when you're drying and you're damp. Yeah, I think that would be my tip. Just making sure like what type of wetsuit you're wearing fits your body in particular. Like try it on. Go to a surf shop, play around with suits. They rent suits, so you can go surf in it. Feel how it feels. How's your movement? Am I able to easily peel this off? Because I'm sure everyone can relate. When you're not with a friend and you have to take a wetsuit and you're at that weird part where you're stuck and you're like, how am I gonna get that? Yeah. They have to literally roll you out the plastic. It's crazy. So yeah, just making sure for your body type it fits is my advice. Yeah.
So don't rush taking your suit.
Don't rush.
No,
Take your time.
You might go into panic state, and if you go into panic state, you're stuck. And you're stuck forever, and then...
I don't want to be wearing just like...
I've been there.
Us also seconding I love my lobster gloves. You call them claws. I love lobsters. You still have some dexterity. Your fingers are not apart. Because I also had snowboarding gloves that were gloves, and they were so crunchy. They got so cold. So like keeping your finger heat is nice. Also, boots. If your boots start to get holes in them, they're gonna flush with water, and your feet are gonna get numb before you know it. So keeping your boots sealed and watertight is very, very important.
There's a cement that you can use actually if you ever have tears in your wetsuit, your boots, your gloves, anything. Sorry.
It's not a train, it's a plane.
So you can get it off like an Amazon, you can get it at a lot of your local stores, and sometimes if it's a huge tear, you sew it up first and then you apply the, what's it called? Yeah, the cement. But if it's just like a little hole in your booty right on the seams, throw it over and it's good as new. It's such a good way of like keeping your products so they last you a few more sessions instead of like 1 year with booties and then you gotta throw them out because it's leaking here and there and you can't stand it. But one thing I learned recently, this is a weird one. Vaseline on your face. It lets the wind blow off, guys. But I can't confirm it because it's like, do you slip after? Like, do you touch your face and then you're popping up?
Well, you don't need to wash your hands.
Gloves.
But yeah, that will like you're gonna get chapped, you're gonna get dry, you're gonna get red, flaky skin, and it hurts and windburn. So that just that layer of some
Goo. I use Aquaphor instead of Vaseline, but same idea. But yeah, it totally helps.
Also, putting your gear on right. So, I've seen quite a few people with their wetsuits on backwards, and that's different. But also, like, when you're wearing your booties and you have your wetsuit on, knowing whether it goes under or over. You don't want it like that. Yeah. So ask people about it. Even your gloves, just making sure that it's protected. You want to make sure you're always maintaining that seal.
Don't be embarrassed to ask someone for help with your gloves. Everyone
You'll
does
be more
it.
embarrassed if your wetsuit's backwards.
Just to get specific, because I've heard actually people debate this, but over or under. I always go under because then when your suit flushes, the water goes straight out rather than into your boot.
Under.
So tuck your boots in, tuck your gloves in, and then if you wipe out and you flush.
Oh wait, you do it the other way.
You do it over or under?
I go my legging
So
goes
boots
over
and
the
then-
boot, my arm goes over the glove.
Yeah, boots inside, gloves inside.
Do you do it the other way?
No.
Yeah.
Okay. Because
You do the gloves over the arm?
then it goes right out. It doesn't go into your gloves and boots.
See, this is. Oh yeah, your arms. Yeah, your arms go.
No,
over
we're all
your
saying the
and then
same
bottom.
Yeah, we're all saying this.
Yeah.
It's like, wait a minute, guys. Hold on.
Same thing. But your
Over.
over your wetsuit.
Cold water comes in through the top when you wipe out, and then it goes out. Not into the boots. It'll be in your toes, which you can't handle it.
I hope that didn't cause any confusion.
Sorry, guys. I was confused.
Also, oh, yeah, you know this.
Okay, one last thing. This I learned at a surf shop. So there's this special brand of boots called Solite. And basically they're like a custom boot. So you put hot water into it and then you put your foot into it, molds to the shape. But you can do this with regular booties too. It's not gonna work as well, but if you get a pair and you feel like they're too big or they're too small, work with it. Throw some water in there and it'll adjust to the shape of your foot a little bit more. But if you're also just starting, please remember, especially with Ulex, it's gonna be tight. It doesn't mean the suit is too small for you. It is your size.
You have to stretch it.
But yeah, it's gonna be stiff and it needs to be worked and like broken in before you can really enjoy what the suit feels like.
Also, the care of your gear. So, we all know if you're a winter surfer, you probably peed in your wetsuit at least once. So just making sure you're soaking it. Like, take it inside out. They have specific shampoos that you can wash your wetsuit with. If you don't have that, obviously maybe your detergent, put a little, maybe something like bleach or something to actually disinfect it. And when you're drying it, a lot of people, because it's happened to me before, I leave it one side out, and I'm like, oh, it's good. The inside is soaking wet. So halfway through, if you remember, turn it inside out so the opposite side can also dry. When it comes to the booties and gloves, it gets really nasty. It gets really stinky. So what you want to do is after a session, definitely swish them out, get that water out, hang them upside down. They have hangers specifically for booties. They also have, it's expensive, it's a bit pricey, but they have these tools where it actually shoots air into the boot so it can dry it faster.
Those changed my life. I love my
I know,
boot
I was like,
dryers.
that's an investment.
It's if you have the means, I highly recommend
Also,
it.
I will, if you're surfing regularly, the wetsuit dryer is a lot cheaper than a second winter wetsuit.
That's
So
true.
it can have it dry for you again the next. Like often the recommendation is you need 2 suits to alternate, but like it's actually cheaper to get the dryer and then just dry the suit.
Yeah, and I think the best trick I ever learned, which I just learned recently, I've been surfing my whole life, is when you're taking your wetsuit off, just using a like all natural soap, like something like Dawn soap. If you just put a little around your wrist and your ankles, it pops right off. I like the first time I tried it, I was like, what the fuck? Like no one told me about this for 15 years. It's like, because I've popped ribs before, I've like tweaked my neck, like I've gotten hurt getting out of winter suits, and it's yeah, see, it's a thing. You can get injured, so like taking the time, remembering to breathe when you're getting out of your very thick wetsuit, but also literally just a little soap pops.
It's
right
also
off.
weird. I take my wetsuit off in the shower.
Oh yeah, of course, you gotta.
So it's crazy because when you're wet, I usually let the water
fill up,
and I just peel it off, and it's a quick, easy rinse too. So that's another way to avoid like tracking sand all through your place. Also picking a spot in your house, around your porch, backyard, where you know you're gonna change. Exactly. I drive, so in my trunk, I usually carry gallons of water, and I literally just will douse myself off in my wetsuit outside of it, because even with the seal from the wetsuit, you're still gonna get sand, all types of weird stuff in your suit, so.
Seaweed.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for these great tips and experiences. We want to open it up to all of you. If anyone has any questions for our panelists, if we didn't cover anything.
So what tips do you have for commuters, like for the in and out of the water? And like for me, I'm gonna have to, like when I come, I'm gonna wake up super early, which is not a problem. Like 4:30, get here around 6, whatever. But then I have to go straight to work. Like, what are some fast things that I can bring and then like take care of the rest later, like when I get home, which is 12 hours later.
Yeah, I used to drive from Astoria, as we were talking about before, and surf here, but I drove, but still had to get changed on the street.
Yeah.
So I would recommend you want to have something you're going to put your wetsuit in, and then you're going to want a dry bag for all your clothes. Get changed on the boardwalk, so you're not getting sandy. You're going to get sandy no matter what. But if you have a water bottle of some warm water, you can rinse yourself off. Put all of your wetsuit things and gear in one bag, and then try to tie that off. And then I do it one at a time too. Like I'll take the top part off, and then I'll put whatever top I have on, my hoodie, or I have like a wool sweater I'll put on, and then I'll take my bathing suit top off sneakily, and then I'll put a towel around my waist, so then I at least have some warm clothes on. Oh, and put a hat on immediately, because you lose so much heat from your head. And then, yeah.
So this is like old school swimmer, like on the deck, hat change.
That's what it is.
Say,
Yeah, I guess it does come from my swim years. Yeah, it's changing on the deck. It's wrapping a towel around your waist and trying to wiggle out of it, and then put your pants on under the towel. Yeah.
Shameless plug, we were supposed to have beanies today, but the patches didn't arrive, so we'll have beanies tomorrow or Monday if you want. But I would say definitely like being prepared, knowing like having your layers. Like I think definitely layering kind of as you go down is important. You don't ever want to have your damp skin exposed if it's 30 degrees out and windy. Like it's not going to be fun. It puts you at risk for hypothermia. So I think having a plan of what's the warmest things I can put on, and like something that people don't realize too with like hypothermia is like you can't just get in a hot shower. So even if you're commuting and you have a friend that you're like, hey, can I just hop in your shower quick? Like start cooler than you think you need. It's still gonna be warmer than the ocean probably, but don't ever get in like a super, super burning hot shower. It's not good for your wetsuit, not good for you. But I think being able to like kind of have a plan, like, okay, I surfed, so I'm gonna get out of the water, I'm gonna get all my clothing together, and then doing kind of the like going down, layering, make sure you put a hat on first, you lose the most heat through your head.
Have
But yeah.
your bag in order too, right?
Yeah, no,
So
that's a
you're
good
gonna
idea.
Take your top off first, so have your sweater on top, or first layer on top, and then your sweater, and then like your pants underneath. Yeah.
I mean, go to if you have a friend, of course. But also, I know like Sushin always posts like if you need a shower, if you need somewhere to change, like. I always remember, I've never utilized that service, but I've always remembered Nigel posting, like, you can, if you need to come, like, no big deal. You don't need to be, like, a lot of places you need to be a member, have a locker, all of that. And I know Station is raising money right now, because I think things have been tight, but a lot of the local businesses will help you out. Yeah.